right? So our next module is on tuples and sets. So okay, so we've covered lists, we've covered dictionaries, right? So tuples and sets are also part of these data types, right? So first we'll get started with um, what are these tuples and how do we use them, and also right, so what's, I mean, when to use a list, when to use a tuple. We'll cover all of that aspects as well. But before we talk about these tuples, I just want you to be clear with the kind of brackets that we are using for each of these, right? So if I have to recall, lists we've used square brackets, dictionaries we've used curly braces, okay, and then now we are talking about tuples. So tuple we will be using normal braces, okay. So these are the three basic differences. And now coming to how do we create these tuples. So just like we've started all the other modules, so let's start with creating a tuple, right? So you create a tuple just like you have your list and you have your dictionary. Like for example, you say my tuple is normal braces and values separated by commas, 1 2 3. It's a 3 value tuple, so values are stored, so very similar to list, right? So sorry, right, so very similar to list, my tuple 1 2 3. And so you can create it in a very simple way, right? So if you remove all of these elements, you will be able to create an empty tuple, right? So now what if you want to access elements, right? So very similar again. So accessing tuple elements, right? So you have my tuple. So just like how we've used 0 1 indexes, you can use it here as well. So my tuple of 0 gives you this, my tuple of 1 gives you this, and 2 gives you this, right? Now you can actually perform tuple, like you can combine multiple tuples as well. So let's see how, let's say you have two tuples, right? How do I combine both of these, right? So let's look at that as well, right? So it comes under like a tuple operations. Let's name that. Okay, so I have, let's say tp1. So tp1 is what, 1 2 and 3. Now let's say tp2 is also there, right? So tp2, it contains, let's say, a comma b comma c. Okay, so I have these two tuples. Let's say I want to do tp1 and tp2 and hit enter. So look at what you get, right? You combine both of these tuples into one. Or if you do something like tuple 1 into 2, so let's see what happens, right? So look at what happens, it actually multiplies. That means the values are repeated. If you do it like 5 times, the values get repeated 5 times, right? So it's very convenient as well. Like, so these are very useful when you create, let's say you want to create a tuple of 10 ones. Okay, so then what you can do is tp3, you can put it as 1, okay, and then multiply it with a 10. So automatically a tuple with 10. Okay, so here in this case it's just because, yeah, so let's do this and you will be able to, yeah. So just make sure if you have one element, you have to put a comma, right? So just making sure that it's actually a tuple with multiple values, right? So just keep a note on this as well. Okay, and so there is another tricky way of using tuples to declare variables. I'll show you that also. So this is called tuple unpacking, right? Even if you forget the syntax, I want you to remember these words. So that is how you can actually browse on internet or use YouTube, ChatGPT, or whatever it is. So I want to give you these kind of hints so that you can actually check and watch these, I mean, or you can read about this stuff as well, right? For example, let's say I have a tuple with 1 2 3, right? So tp1 is my 1 2 3. Now my goal is, let's say I want to equate a is equals to 1, b is equals to 2, c equals to 3, right? So something like that, right? So if I have to do it, I have to type 3 lines, a b c, right? I have to do this thing, right? But you can actually simplify it in just one line. So how do we do that? A comma B comma C is equals to tuple of 1 2 3, and now look at this. Look what happens. Put A. Okay, it's 1. If you don't believe me, I'll change it to 10 20 30. Let's see what happens. 10 20 30, enter 10. You see, B, you get 20, right? So that is how you can actually unpack values, right? So using these tuples as well, right? And one small thing about tuples is, so once you create a tuple, you cannot modify, you cannot remove any elements, you cannot add any elements. It is fixed. The analogy I believe is, but it's not the same for list, right? So list versus tuple. I know it's a very bad analogy, but I'll still try to tell you. Now list, you can think of it like a train. Okay. Now what does a train have? It has compartments, it has an engine, it has a guard coach towards the end, luggage, everything, isn't it? Now engine come from one side to the other side. You can switch the engines, you can change the compartments, you can reduce the compartments, you can keep adding the compartments, right? You can modify a lot of this. Okay, you define it. But tuple is more like a bus, right? Once you have it, you can't make two buses into one, you can't cut the bus into half, you can't do anything, right? So this, in Python words, it is called immutable, and lists is called mutable. So that means you can add, change, like add, remove, modify. You can do all of this, but here you cannot. Okay, you can do all of that. All right, so here you can't add, can't modify, right? So you can't do anything. So remember this. Okay, this is one big difference. And then when it comes to memory, right? So list is memory high, right? So it consumes a lot of memory, but whereas tuple, it is low memory, right? So it's very efficient because of various reasons, right? So because you are already defining tuple and you are saying it cannot accommodate more, you don't have to change anything, right? So tuple occupies less memory, and whereas list occupies a lot of memory. Okay, so remember these most important differences between list and tuple. So this could also be some good questions around, like what's the difference between a list and a tuple. Okay, so that is up with a tuple. Now moving on to our next topic, so which is actually about sets. Okay, so this is also a very good topic, very useful one as well. So sets, see, remember in our schools we all did this set operations, union, intersection, right? All of that, right? So that is what this sets is also about. But in Python you can actually do bunch of more things as well. Okay, so for example, let's say you have a list. Okay, 1 comma 1 comma 2, very simple. Okay, 3 elements, 1 1 2. Now let's say you want to find out unique values in this list. Okay, so unique values in a list. So how do you do it? You can use set of ls1, and this will automatically give you the unique values, right? Isn't this amazing? Very simple, just one line, set of this list gives you unique values. So that's how you can actually use sets to find out unique values. Otherwise you can create your own sets, like for example s1, you can define it 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, so we are using curly braces, right? So curly braces, I'm putting it again here. So for a set we are using curly braces, right? So here we put key value pairs, here it is comma separated, comma separated, comma separated. Okay, so just keep this in mind, right? So don't get confused. List square brackets, dictionary key value separated by commas with flower brackets, tuple using this normal braces with comma separated values, then set curly braces with comma separated values. Okay, I hope this is useful. Now coming back, so set as I was saying, you can create this set. So let's say we create one more set. Set 2 is equals to 2 comma 3 comma 4. Okay, so we have two sets, set 1 and set 2. Now you can actually do set operations. So what do I mean by that? I'll just put this text. So you can do set operations. So S1 dot, for example, let's try union of S2, right? So this is how you do it. So S1 dot union of S2, right? So this gives you see this actually is true, right? So 2 3 are common elements, and then 1 comma 4. So 1 2 3 4, right? And then you can also do S1 intersection of S2. Now before I run it, I want you to guess the answer. What are the common elements between set 1 and set 2? It is actually 2 comma 3. Isn't this amazing, right? So very simple. You don't have to like write complicated logics, right? So this also you can do difference and of S2. So what is not present in this set, right? So similarly you can do the reverse also. S2 difference S1 gives you the elements which are there in S2 but not in S1. So all these kinds of set operations can be possible using these sets, right? So but most of the times these are used to extract the unique values. That is where the application of sets lies. I hope you enjoyed this module. See you in the next one.